Live to No Panic Zone. I'm Steve Gruber. I'm America's voice, always delivering an equitable, diverse, and inclusive broadcast, of course, using only environmentally just topics that maintain maximum sustainable, socially correct, and earth-friendly conversations. And for the record, no animals were harmed in the production of this program, but hey, it's still early. We can sharpen our knives. And here are the three big things you need to know right now. Number one, pedophile polar bears. Is that a thing? Well, that's the latest book for kids found in a school library. How did it get there? Who knows? But more importantly, who writes this garbage? That's what we need to figure out. Number two, the cleanup continues after Joe Biden's State of the Union address Tuesday. And the lies are continuing from the president about the Republicans and the Social Security, too. And number three, the war on the United States Constitution is waging on many fronts. Cancel culture and the poor innocent ears of snowflakes that are worried about the violence of words, which, of course, flies in the face of everything I was taught by good people growing up. You know, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Well, for those on the very fragile left, words are the target more and more every day. Words are violence. Words are violence. No, they're not. Stop acting like children. Stop being crybabies. Suck it up, Buttercup. Words are not violence. They want to criminalize the freedom of speech. Label it under such dishonest labels as hate speech, hurtful speech, racist speech, or just something that might make somebody upset or uncomfortable. The problem is the First Amendment of the United States Constitution specifically prohibits, without any exceptions, for the government to engage in censoring American citizens. And yet we learned after Elon Musk took over at Twitter that the FBI and members of the Biden campaign team and administration, among others, had direct access through a backdoor to shut down tweets individually or entire accounts. It came to the forefront with the freezing of the New York Post account in October of 2020. It was put in place not to protect the truth, not to protect the truth at all, to prevent the world from learning about the sleazy behavior of Hunter Biden and the possible criminal connections he may have had with a number of people. Remember the name Tony Bobulinski? He came out. He told everybody that what was on that laptop was real, was accurate, was honest, was true. He was mocked by the mainstream media. Mocked was Tony Bobulinski. By the way, the people connected to Hunter Biden in that laptop included not just people in his circle, not just connections in China and Russia and Ukraine, but his own family, his sister, his uncle, and yes, his father, the man who is now the president of the United States. The mainstream media, along with Twitter and other social news and social media outlets, killed the story. Again, not to protect you and I from misinformation or disinformation, but to protect Joe Biden while he was hiding in his Delaware basement from any bad press just before the election, because he wasn't going to come out of the basement, right? He wasn't going to come out of the basement at all. But we learned a lot more. We learned a lot more on Capitol Hill Wednesday during fiery conversations between members of Congress and former members of the Twitter safety team, or whatever they called themselves. We learned that the FBI and others were involved in censoring Twitter long before the laptop from hell came tumbling out. A lot of testimony that so-called shadow banning and suspensions were far more common than we may have realized. Far more common than we may have realized. Many of those targeted were high-profile influencers and even sitting members of Congress, too. It was a fiery hearing, to say the least. Let's begin with this one. Listen to this.
To the gentleman from
I think the chair for yielding. Mr. Baker, you said you didn't talk with the FBI that day. Did you talk to the FBI about the Hunter Biden laptop story prior to then or after that day?
I'm trying to make sure I can answer this question consistent with the restrictions that I talked about in my opening
Simple
statement.
question. Did you talk to the FBI about the Hunter Biden story?
To the best of my recollection, I did not talk to the FBI about the Hunter Biden story before that day.
Did you talk to him after it? You said your
don't recall.
Your response is real specific to the chairman. You said, I did not talk to the FBI about the Hunter Biden laptop story that day. I assume that day is October 14th. I want to know if you talked to him on the 13th or before, or if you talked to him on the 15th and after.
I don't recall speaking to the FBI. Sitting here today, I don't recall speaking to the FBI at all about the Hunter Biden matter.
Well, then why'd you answer it the way you did?
I beg your pardon?
I yield back to.
Now you look at what's going on right there. Jim Baker worked at the FBI, attorney at the FBI, internal counsel at the FBI. Then he took a job, as so many from the FBI did, over at Twitter. There was a pipeline, you see. There was a pipeline of people leaving the FBI and taking high-paying jobs, security jobs, over at Twitter, only it wasn't about security at all. It was about how to censor you and me and Donald Trump and anybody that supported Donald Trump and anybody that had a point of view that didn't line up exactly with what the accepted talking points were, no matter what the topic. Many of those topics were political. Maybe all of them were. Maybe all of them were. Because it included Hunter Biden and the laptop, which was off limits. It also included the pandemic. I've told you my personal story here for years. My Twitter account would creep up to just about 10,000, just touch 10,000, and boom, I'd be back at 6. Creep, bam. I couldn't break 10,000, and so finally I gave up on it. I didn't care anymore. It became a running joke, actually. I tell Ivy, I say, look, we're not going to make 10,000 anymore. We're going to get swatted back. Sure enough, that's what would happen over and over again until Elon Musk took over. I now have 10,500. Didn't take me very long either. All of a sudden, it starts to grow. I picked up 300 followers in the last, 3 or 4 days. Because I'm not being blocked anymore. The idea that there's no shadow banning going on. Of course there's shadow banning going on. Voices like mine were not to be heard. People that say the First Amendment of the Constitution is paramount to America, like I say, we were to be silenced. Can you imagine that? A guy like me who sits here and protects and proclaims that the First Amendment is the foundational freedom of America and the envy of the world is the first one to be silenced. That's how grotesque all of this is. Oh, and worse. Because of what they did, they interfered with an election. And now they might pay a price for that, which we'll get to after the break here, because this is really important. Not only did they throttle down, block the New York Post and seal their account off, and others that talk about Hunter Biden, but they put their thumb on the scale of an election in 2020. They know it, and now everybody knows it. The question is, will something be done about it? I'll be right back on the Steve Gruber Show.